Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Miller. We are back for chapter 12. We're going to read it in two parts. So this is part 1 of chapter 12. Remember, we just left Oz and he told our friends that they needed to destroy the Wicked Witch of the West or he was not going to grant their wish. So chapter 12 is the search for the Wicked Witch. The soldier with the green whiskers led them through the streets of the Emerald City until they reached the room where the guardian of the gates lived. The officer unlocked their spectacles to put them back in his great box. And then he politely opened the gate for our friends. "Which road leads to the Wicked Witch of the West?" asked Dorothy. "There is no road," answered the guardian of the gates. "No one ever wishes to go that way." "How then are we to find her?" inquired the girl. "That will be easy," replied the man, "for when she knows you are in the country of the Winkies, she will find you and make you all her slaves." "Perhaps not," said the Scarecrow, "for we mean to destroy her." "Oh, that is different," said the guardians of the gates. "No one has ever destroyed her before, so I naturally thought she would make slaves of you, as she has of all the rest. But take care, for she is wicked and fierce, and may not allow you to destroy her. Keep to the west where the sun sets, and you cannot fail to find her." They thanked him and bade him goodbye and turned towards the west, walking over fields of soft grass dotted here and there with daisies and buttercups. Dorothy still wore the pretty dress she had put on in the palace, but now, to her surprise, she found it was no longer green, but pure white. The ribbon around Toto's neck had also lost its green color and was as white as Dorothy's dress. Something to think about. The Emerald City was soon left far behind. As they advanced, the ground became rougher and hillier, for there were no farms nor houses in this country of the West, and the ground was untilled. In the afternoon, the sun shone hot on their faces, for there were no trees to offer them shade. So that before night, Dorothy and Toto and the lion were tired and lay down upon the grass and fell asleep with the woodsman and the Scarecrow keeping watch. Now the Wicked Witch of the West had but one eye, yet that was as powerful as a telescope and could see everywhere. So she sat down in the door of her castle, and she happened to look around and saw Dorothy lying asleep with her friends about her. They were a long distance off, but the Wicked Witch was angry to find them in her country. So she blew upon her silver whistle that hung around her neck. At once there came running to her from all directions a pack of great wolves. They had long legs and fierce eyes and sharp teeth. "Go to these people," said the witch, "and tear them to pieces." "Are you not going to make them your slaves?" asked the leader of the wolves. "No," she answered. "One is of tin and one of straw. One is a girl and another a lion. None of them is fit to work, so you may tear them all to small pieces." "Very well," said the wolf, and he dashed away at full speed, followed by the others. It was lucky the Scarecrow and woodsman were wide awake and heard the wolves coming. "This is my fight," said the woodsman, "so get behind me and I will meet them as they come." He seized his axe, which he had made very sharp, and as the leader of the wolves came to the Tin Woodsman, he swung his arm and chopped the wolf's head from its body, so that it immediately died. As soon as he could raise his axe, another wolf came up, and he also fell under the sharp edge of the Tin Woodsman's weapon. There were 40 wolves, and 40 times a wolf was killed, so that at last they all lay dead in a heap before the woodman. Then he put his axe down and sat beside the Scarecrow, who said, "It was a good fight, friend." They waited until Dorothy awoke the next morning. The little girl was quite frightened when she saw the great pile of shaggy wolves, but the Tin Woodsman told her all. She thanked him for saving them and sat down to breakfast, after which they started upon their journey. Now the same morning, the Wicked Witch came to the door of her castle and looked out with her one eye that could see afar off. She saw all her wolves lying dead and the strangers still traveling through her country. This made her angrier than before, and she blew her silver whistle twice. So here's a picture of the Tin Woodsman who chopped off the leader's head. There he is. done his job and protected his friends. Straightway a great flock of wild crows came flying towards her, enough to darken the sky. And the wicked witch said to the king crow, "Fly at once to the strangers, peck out their eyes, and tear them to pieces." The wild crows flew in one great flock toward Dorothy and her companions. When the little girl saw them coming, she was afraid. But the scarecrow said, "This is my battle. So lie down beside me, and you will not be harmed." So they lay down upon the ground, except the scarecrow, and he stood up and stretched out his arms. And when the crows saw him, they were frightened, as these birds always are by scarecrows, and did not dare to come nearer. But the king crow said, "It is only a stuffed man. I will peck his eyes out." The king crow flew at the scarecrow, who caught it by the head and twisted its neck until it died. And then another crow flew at him, and the scarecrow twisted its neck also. There were 40 crows, and 40 times the scarecrow twisted a neck, until at last all were laying dead beside him. Then he called to his companions to rise, and again they went upon their journey. When the wicked witch looked out again and saw all her crows laying in a heap, she got into a terrible rage and blew upon her whistle 3 times. Forthwith there was heard a great buzzing in the air, and a swarm of bees came flying towards her. "Go to the strangers and sting them to death," commanded the witch. And the bees turned and flew rapidly until they came to where Dorothy and her friends were walking. But the woodsman had seen them coming, and the scarecrow had decided what to do. "Take out my straw and scatter it over the little girl and the dog and the lion," he said to the woodsman, "and the bees cannot sting them." This the woodsman did, and as Dorothy lay close beside the lion and held Toto in her arms, the straw covered them entirely. The bees came and found no one but the woodsman to sting, so they flew at him and broke off all their stingers against the tin, without hurting the woodsman at all. And as the bees cannot live without their stings when they are broken, that was the end of the black bees, and they lay scattered thick about the woodsman like a heap of fine coal. Then Dorothy and the lion got up, and the girl helped the Tin Woodsman put the straw back into the scarecrow again until he was as good as ever. So they started upon their journey once more. The Wicked Witch was so angry when she saw her black bees in little heaps like fine coal that she stomped her foot and tore her hair and gnashed her teeth. And then she called a dozen of her slaves, who were the Winkies, and gave them sharp spears, telling them to go to the strangers and destroy them. The Winkies were not brave people, but they had to do as they were told. So they marched away until they came near to Dorothy. Then the lion gave a great roar and sprang toward them, and the poor Winkies were so frightened that they ran back as fast as they could. When they returned to the castle, the Wicked Witch beat them well with a strap and sent them back to their work, after which she sat down to think what she should do next. She could not understand how all her plans to destroy these strangers had failed, but she was a powerful witch as well as a wicked one. And she soon made up her mind how to act. There was in her cupboard a golden cap with a circle of diamonds and rubies running around it. This golden cap had a charm. Whoever owned it could call 3 times upon the winged monkeys, who would obey any order they were given. But no person could command these strange creatures more than 3 times. Twice already the Wicked Witch had used the charm of the cap. Once was when she had made the Winkies her slaves and set herself to rule over the country. The winged monkeys had helped her do this. The second was when she had fought against the great Oz himself and driven him out of the land of the West. The winged monkeys had also helped her in doing this. Only once more could she use the golden cap, for which reason she did not like to do so until all her other powers were exhausted. But now that her fierce wolves and her wild crows and her stinging bees were gone, and her slaves had been scared away by the cowardly lion, she saw there was only one way left to destroy Dorothy and her friends. So the wicked witch took the golden cap from her cupboard and placed it upon her head. And that's where we're going to end part 1 of chapter 2.